Hey there, Rivermen fans. I'm Jason Ruff. Welcome to the Dry Dock Podcast. Welcome back, Rivermen fans, to the Dry Dock Podcast. It's the podcast where we go over and look back on the 40th Rivermen season, the championship season, with famous Rivermen past and present. I'm your host, of course, Jason Ruff. Our next guest is someone who has already written his name into the Peoria history books, had a number of key goals over the course of the season against some big-time opponents, was made an assistant captain late in the season, but he will be remembered for one goal and one goal only. It was the championship-winning goal, 66 seconds into overtime in Game 4 against the Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs. That ended a 22-year championship drought for Peoria. I, of course, am referring to JM Piotrowski, join us live from the Lone Star State. A little bit in shadow, but then again, it has to be hot down there where you are. JM, great to see you, my friend. How are things, and are you staying cool down in Texas?
Yeah, trying to stay warm, keep the windows closed, keep the fans on, keep the lights down low. Yeah, no, it's quite an introduction. I appreciate it. Thrilled to be on. I've already caught up on all the latest episodes, so I kind of know the drill here. I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of my side.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. You came to Peoria with a little bit of fanfare. You were previously signed by the Rivermen ahead of the 2020 season. Obviously, this season didn't take place. So when you came in 2021 ahead of the 40th season, what was your first impression of not only Peoria and the Rivermen, but also Rivermen head coach Jean-Guy Trudel?
Yeah, I think right away the thing that stuck out to me was how dedicated Guy is, and just even over phone calls, it just felt like the right decision for me. I think there was a lot of things that he knew about me that not a lot of other people really had ever brought to my attention, and I mean that like in a very like hockey minded way, but also just as a person. I think he's great with building relationships, and from the get-go, our first couple of phone calls, I could feel that right away. And I think ultimately it was a decision where I just wanted to go with my gut, and I think that I'm really glad that I made that decision. Obviously it would have been nice to have that opportunity a year earlier, but like things worked out the way they did this year, and for that reason alone, I don't think I can really have too many regrets.
No, it certainly worked out, and I don't think you could have too many regrets considering how the season played out, not only for the team, but for you as well. But JM, you were originally, I remember sitting actually in this very office where we're filming today, sitting down with Jean-Guy Trudel, just going over the players, and we came to you. I asked Guy, JM Piotrowski, I know you signed him previously in 2020. Now he's coming in. What do you envision is his role for you this season? And Guy said it straight up, said, we originally brought him in as, a third line center, a penalty killer, someone who's going to make the smart play, but we're going to need him to step up in a big way and really take on more responsibility because at that point early in the season, getting players was so difficult for every team, not just the Rivermen. So how did you feel you grew as a hockey player, and what kind of roles, leadership aside, because we already know that's well documented, what kind of roles did you have to grow into over the course of this season?
Yeah, I think the first point I'd like to talk about is like with Guy, he's so smart offensively as a coach, and well, obviously as a player, you look at his elite prospects, he has points every single season that he played. And that was something that he told me right from the start. He's like, I think you have a little bit more offense in you if we surround you with the right people. And that was something that was really exciting for me. Conversely, you look at my elite prospects, there's not a lot of seasons where the numbers are in double digits even. And then so to have somebody who believed in me to produce offensively, I was excited to find someone who could bring that out of me. And like, I agree with him. I think I had it in me. It was just finding the right environment. And so I think that I came in and, at the beginning of any season, you want to set goals, and traditionally, like, having 20 goals was never really something on my radar because it was never even, it just didn't really seem attainable for so long because I was never in those situations. I wasn't really playing much power play in my career. I was playing more of a role where I could be counted on to win faceoffs late in the game or kill penalties, which is something that I definitely stepped into and thrived on, just inside my own like hockey drive. But I think that to have the opportunity to play on the power play and to play with guys like Marcel and Hags and Bearsy, really like highly offensive skilled players, and learn from them, it forced me to raise my game every day. And so to have a season like I did, it just purely from a number standpoint it's what's keeping me going right now, and it's exciting. And so, yeah, I just think that as well as I feel like I did this year, there's so much more room to grow. And that's something that's really exciting to me right now.
Certainly so. And that season, from a number standpoint, arguably got started on November 20th of 2021. You had the only goal. It was a huge goal against the Huntsville Havoc in what would end up being a 1-0 Rivermen win. I still remember that goal like it's yesterday. You get the puck right at the blue line, you skate right in on a breakaway, beat the goaltender 5-hole. And that was your first goal as a Peoria Riverman. It certainly would not be your most famous goal. Let's just put it that way. But when you look back at that game, at your performance on that weekend, and just how everything coalesced for the Rivermen, handing Huntsville their first loss, really starting to find your game offensively, how did that weekend or even that game kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak, and have that ball snowball into the performance we saw in the postseason?
Yeah, I remember that game vividly as well. I think first and foremost, to get the monkey off my back and get my first goal of the year was something that was exciting. Definitely awesome to get it at home. But also playing against Huntsville, I happened to play for Huntsville for a bit last season. So to score that goal, my first goal against them, was definitely a good feeling. And then, like you said, to hand them their first loss, they were streaking 11 in a row or whatever, and we had just took them to a shootout, I think, the night before. So yeah, and the other thing is, like you mentioned earlier, it was really tough finding players at that point in the season. I think we had Nate Chastain was in the lineup, and I'm not sure that we even had 3 full lines. So we were playing 2 centers, Bearsy and I, early in the season. I think I was close to 30 minutes that game. So that's something that I'll definitely never forget. Like you talked about, the roles that I've played traditionally in my career, to have a game where I'm playing 30 minutes in a professional hockey game is not something, a couple years ago that I would have thought possible, but it's definitely something that jump-started the season. And from then on, I just felt like, okay, I can do this, and I know what I'm capable of. I have this in me. It's just a matter of bringing it every night. And, was luckily able to continue to grow that throughout the season and come up with some more moments like that.
When did you get a sense, or first get a sense, that there might be something special brewing with this team, that it might be able to make a championship run, do you think?
I mean, whether you believe this or not, I feel like right from training camp, there was a lot of holes, I guess you could say, in our lineup. And that's no diss to the guys that were there. There was some great guys and great humans that I still keep in touch with. It's just a matter of finding the right pieces. But I think, and I heard Guy, he always talks about this, is like your leadership group is so important. And you look at guys like Alec Hageman, 30 years old or however old he is, but multiple seasons with the Peoria Rivermen. Probably, I mean, not even probably, I would say the best captain in this league, and one of the best captains in pro hockey. Definitely the best captain that I've ever played for. He does everything. He hits, he fights, he scores, he defends his teammates, he knows how to communicate in the dressing room, he works out every day like a madman. So I think, coming in and seeing that type of leadership from guys like him, it's just like, it makes you want to follow. And I think that brought a lot of great things out of me. And so to have that core group of guys, and then you look at the back end like Neville, Rumble, and then, Eric Levine in the net. There was so many veteran pieces that it was like, this is really a special opportunity we have here. And, we had our struggles at the beginning of the year, just like every team, but we found the right pieces down the stretch. And so it was something that I never really lost sight of all season. It was like, okay, we're here. And I think I'm finally going to be on a team in pro hockey where not only am I going to make the playoffs, which I hadn't done yet. I think that I seriously had a chance to win another championship. And so, yeah, I mean, I would wholeheartedly and firmly believe that I felt that kind of tingling right in training camp.
Now, before I ask you about the goal in the playoffs, I need to ask you about another one. You had an exceptional short angle shot goal that ended up being a key difference maker. I think it was against Quad City, if my memory serves. What did you see? And here's the crazy thing about it. It like was normal for the Rivermen to get so many crazy odd angle goals on that same net here in Peoria. In your instance, what did you see on that shot? Were guys telling you just shoot it from anywhere, shoot it from those weird angles because they were going in? Or did you see something specifically on film or previously in the game that made you think, okay, if I put it here, I can score?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things that went into that it's not like I was thinking about at the time really, but kind of just went into it. Like obviously watching Marcel come down the right side and rip a short side, forehand shot multiple times against that goalie this season, or really against multiple goalies. I think that definitely played into it. So playing with him and watching him do that, and it works. I was obviously on my backhand there, but it's a do or die game. It's 1-1 going into the third period, and so any shot's a good shot. It's almost like overtime at that point. So, but I do remember that I think I had a similar rush. I don't remember if it was game 1 or game 2, coming down that same spot. And I remember watching, before that game 3, just watching back my shifts, and I was looking at that clip in particular, and I just noticed that I took the shot, and I think I ended up shooting it wide to the far side. But when I looked back, I was like, okay, there's a lot of room on the short side upstairs. The goalie's kind of down, and you watch Marcel do that on the other side. He's down, he shoots it over his shoulder, he even hits it off his head a couple of times. So
yeah, because he kept turning his head an awkward angle, like giving you a little bit extra room, like he was trying to lean down and try to get a better angle at it almost. That was weird. I noticed that in the replays, watching back on it too.
But yeah, I mean, I think I picked the puck up in the neutral zone, and I did almost a full lap, and I happened to beat one guy, and I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm in this same area, and I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I saw the corner and I picked it perfectly. Like, I threw it at the net. I knew I wanted to shoot it high. I knew I had I forget who it was. Somebody was going to the net, and so I figured worst case scenario, maybe there's a rebound or a play in front, but yeah, just throw things at the net, and a lot of times good things can happen. And so that was obviously quite the thrill to see that go in the back of the net. And I almost decapitated Rumble and in the celebration, but that was definitely a goal that I'll never forget as well.
Oh, I'm sure everyone's happy that you didn't decapitate Brandon Rumble. I'm sure he's very happy about that too. And a lot of good things were going well for the Rivermen on that particular net. But now I got to ask you about that game and that overtime. You're coming out into overtime. Tie game 3-3. Marcel Gabout's already tied the game in the third period. You're coming into overtime, and you get to call to go out of the ice, and you're peeling right towards the front of the net as the puck's carrying around in behind. What are you thinking in your mind? And did you even see that shot come off of Jordan Ernst's stick from the half wall?
Yeah, I mean, I think to back it up from there, like in my mind, as soon as Marcel scored that power play goal, I was fairly confident. I won't say 100%, but I was fairly confident that we were going to win the game. I didn't know if it was going to be an overtime, regulation, triple overtime, whatever. But I think that everybody in the room kind of felt like, okay, now we've survived until now. We have our opportunity. Now is where we do our damage and we do our best work. And so I think going into overtime, I know Guy talked about it quite a bit. A lot of guys were struggling with the heat, cramping, myself included. Like I'll be fully transparent here. I was very nervous going into overtime, just at the sense that not nervous for the result of the game, but nervous for the cramps that I was getting in my legs. I'm sitting in the locker room, like Casey's sitting next to me. I'm like, I can't, like, I need a liquid IV. I need some pickle juice. I need something. I'm freaking out. I'm starting to panic really, because I'm like, we got to go out for overtime. And like, this is the biggest moment of the season. We've worked so hard this whole year. And, you know, selfishly, like I've worked so hard this whole season and I don't want to be out there and not be able to perform at my best. So, you know, going onto the ice, skating around right before overtime started, I was like, all right, like just take it one shift at a time. And I don't even remember what happened at the beginning of the shift, but Marcel tries to go around a guy and then ends up throwing it at the net and it rims around. And I just noticed that there was nobody in front of the net, and something that we worked on from day one of training camp is where do you score goals? You go to the net. And Guy and I laughed about this multiple times since then, but yeah, I just went to the front of the net. And you watch a lot of overtime goals, you know, whether it's the playoffs or whether it's the Stanley Cup final. Like, look at Patty Kane's goal from an off angle, or Crosby's golden goal in the Olympics. Just a short angle, weird play. And I think I went to the front of the net and I got the slightest little deflection on it and right between his legs. And I just remember like hearing the puck hit the pad in the back of the net. And next thing I know, like just grabbing Marcel or whoever, and then everybody's throwing their gear. My stick hasn't landed yet. I think it's in the crowd.
They're still watching. They're still in Roanoke. They're still looking up, trying to find it. See if it's coming down yet.
So, I mean, that was just a special moment to, you know, whether we won it in regulation or whether we won it in overtime, the moment where it's finally over and you're champions, there's no feeling like it. And, you know, I'm lucky that I finally got my voice back from screaming for a few days after that.
Absolutely. You know, JM, you've endured a lot in your hockey career, and you've overcome a lot of challenges, whether that's, you know, not making junior hockey teams or getting cut from junior hockey teams that you really wanted to play with, or not playing in college your senior year or what have you. You've overcome a lot of challenges to now get to this point, to know that not only are you an SPHL President's Cup champion, but your name and your actions in this one season alone are going to live forever in the history of this program. When you look back on this whole journey up to this point, what's the big lesson? What's the big takeaway for other hockey players out there, perhaps?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I owe so much to the people around me, the people that I've surrounded myself with, my parents, obviously. Been super fortunate to have great teammates. Even when I wasn't on teams where I was in situations that I was really, you know, I wasn't necessarily enjoying every day as much as I would have liked. Was lucky to have a great support system through some mentors of mine. And then to get the opportunity to come to Peoria, I think really it finally, for the first time in my career, felt like something that I was super excited about, as far as a player-coach relationship. It's whether you want to admit it or not, like the coach determines a lot with what happens with your performance on the ice. A coach, like Guy likes to say, a coach can't give you confidence, but I think he can surely like teach you things to give yourself confidence. And so, you know, through all the disappointments, like you mentioned, that I had throughout my career, I don't really ever see those as negatives. I think I always knew when I guess from the time I was really, like, as long as I can remember, I was like, I know I'm good enough, and I have been beat down a few times, but not enough to the point where I was going to quit. So any barrier that kind of came into my way, I was like, all right, well, how do I get through this? Do I have to go around it? Do I go through it? Do I have to try a new avenue? It was never like, oh man, I'm thinking about being done. It was just, okay, how do I get to the next step? And so I think I just developed an ability to really take a punch, I guess, if you will. And I think that to be able to persevere and now stand this moment as a champion and, you know, live, I guess, like you mentioned, in Peoria Rivermen history, that's an added bonus. But I think just the fulfillment that I get and that I did get this season is enough to last me for the rest of my life. And I just couldn't be more grateful for all the people that were able to make it happen.
Some very wise words, but then again, you'd never expect anything less than from a former Yale Bulldog. Another question, a bit more of a lighthearted question for you, JM. The House of JMP, that's your clothing line that kind of became the the de facto clothing line for a lot of the guys, including myself, on the road. Make some wonderful tie-dyed hoodies. I got to ask, first off, where did the name House of JMP come from? But more importantly, how did you get involved and get an interest in clothing and clothing design?
Yeah. So once again, thanks for the shout out.
Of course. I'm sorry I'm not wearing mine with me. It's in the wash.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. So House of JMP started. It was my girlfriend's sister actually was the one. She's like, "Oh, I know what JM should call his clothing line." It's like House of JMP, because there's companies like Chanel House and like Drew House is Justin Bieber's company, and so I don't know. She said, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And this is kind of before I was really even like official, I guess. Not that I'm like super official now, but I was like, I wasn't really calling it anything. I was just kind of messing around, making the hoodies, and this was back to, let's see, maybe a few months after the initial start of the pandemic. So right around 2 years ago, I'd say, is when everything started. And I was just messing around making tie-dye and posting it on. I posted a sweatshirt that I made online, and I got a couple comments. People were like, "Oh, that's really cool. Like, how'd you make that?" And then I made a few more and just was trying to be creative. And like during peak COVID, there wasn't a lot to do. So I was stuck in the house, trying to find ways to stay busy and feel productive. And that was kind of an avenue that I found, not being able to go to the rink in those moments. So I just kept posting online, and I got more and more support, and people were like, "Yo, I would buy one of these if you sold them." So I kind of took the downtime from hockey, and I used it to try to work on a project of mine. I built out a website. I took photos. I was hiring. Well, I didn't hire, but I found a photographer to take like more professional looking photos. I bought a sewing machine, bought an embroidery machine. So I just kind of like started putting all the pieces together and, forming this little business. And House of JMP it's something that's fun for me. It's a good side gig in the professional hockey world. I have, plenty of time for it. Been fairly busy this summer. So I apologize if you're waiting on a hoodie right now. They'll be out soon. To anybody who's wondering where theirs is. But yeah, I think, whether this is something that continues for the rest of my life or it's just more of a short-term project until I find the next thing, it's definitely taught me a lot about business. It's taught me a lot about how to, persevere, how to solve problems, and how to be independent. So I think in this world, those are skills that I just look forward to using whenever I get the opportunity. And I think that it's been a fun journey, and it's a way for me to, be creative. And that's just kind of who I am. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, during the pandemic, a lot of folks did a lot of things. Some people wrote books. Some people found new hobbies. JM Piotrowski started a clothing brand. JM, last question before we obviously let you go and give you a chance to hype up and publicize your fantastic hoodies, because I want everyone to know how they can get their hands on one. They have my recommendation as well as all my cousins. They have theirs. They love them. But JM, what are your off-season plans now that the ship is in dry dock? And are you getting a chance to get some grilling out there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, just trying to not suffer from heat stroke. 101 degrees today. But yeah, I think it definitely took some time off from the season ending. It was a long season, kind of not too many like major injuries, but just some nagging stuff that I wanted to let rest. And luckily in this league, we got plenty of time off, even if you do win a championship and go all the way. So kind of getting back into the swing of things, working out. I'm coaching a couple days a week with a buddy of mine who's running summer camp. So getting on the ice. And I think coaching is something that I've started to enjoy, in the sense that when you're teaching other people, you learn a little bit more about what it is that you're teaching. Because, there's things that, whether it's Guy or whatever coach is telling you at the time, it might not always click until you're teaching it to someone else and then you see them do it. And I think there's a lot of reward in those moments. And so yeah, doing that, and then obviously working on the House of JMP and trying to keep that going is something that I've been doing. I'm doing a side project for Eric Levine right now, actually, with his Midwest Goalie Academy. We're doing a Midwest Goalie Academy and House of JMP collab. So
Ooh.
Those are in the works right now. Should hopefully be. He's probably calling me, asking me where they are as well, but hopefully those will be done soon. He's got some big camps coming up, and I think the final product of those is going to be pretty cool. So yeah, just staying busy and looking forward to, the next step in my career. Definitely going to play hockey next year. And I think that Peoria has just been such a great place for me, and I really found a home there. And I think environment is everything for me. So whichever direction things go for me from here, I know that Peoria will always be a home. And I think that if I'm there, it's going to be a great option.
I can tell you a lot of folks are really happy to hear that. We're actually going to have Eric Levine on next week's episode, so I'll be sure to ask him about the collaboration between Midwest Goalie Academy and House of JMP. Well, JM, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Rep yourself, pub yourself. How can people follow your work and get their hands on some sweet House of JMP merch?
Yeah, House of JMP on Instagram, houseofjmp.com. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Working on a few things to make it easier for people to find me going forward. The QR codes are very big in social media and just in advertising these days. So yeah, I'm trying to find ways to be creative with that. I'm doing some rebranding. I have new tags for my hoodies. They are a little bit different than the old design.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. And yeah, there's just a few things. I think I'm gonna start also doing T-shirts as well, because I know a lot of people, especially in the summer, and especially if you're in Texas, it's a bit more of an affordable option and a more practical option at this point. So it's something that I think a lot of people would enjoy, and I'm happy to take feedback from people and just grow the brand and just overall grow my ability to connect with people. I think there's been I've gotten a lot of emails. I've gotten a lot of feedback on social media, just whether it's friends of mine or, old connections of people that are interested in what I'm doing. And I think it's great to have support like that. So I just want to say thank you to everybody whether you've bought a hoodie or not, or you've followed my page. It's something that I really enjoy. And I hope that, as I continue to progress, things just are happy for me. And I think that's what's most important.
Oh, we're super glad that things are working out for you. We can't wait to see what's next, not only for you and your hockey career, whether it be here in the SPHL with Peoria or maybe even moving up to other leagues. And of course, with the House of JMP, bow ties. You get bow ties, man. I will buy multiples of every single one of them. Some tired bow ties.
I do want to say one more thing, because I realized now at the end of this interview, I didn't talk about Casey at all once. Casey and I have played together on I don't know how many different teams now at this point, but one thing that I will say about him is if you get him on this podcast, you will be laughing for 30 minutes straight. He's a great interview, and he's got plenty of stories to tell you. So if he's not in the queue yet, I would say try and get him after Eric, because I think a lot of the fans would enjoy him, and I know I sure would want to listen.
He's in the queue. Don't worry. It's just about finding a time we can schedule all these interviews. But don't worry, we're going to get Casey Kolcheski on this podcast. Thanks.
Now I can just make sure that he doesn't get mad at me for not.
Hey, I get it. JM, thanks so much for your time. Great talk with you. We'll see you again soon enough.
All right, Ruffer. Thank you. See you later, Peoria Rivermen fans.